Now, today I have a special guest for you. I'm interviewing Dr. John Demartini, and we'll be talking about the topic of the law of attraction and how to use it to overcome your social anxiety and create a satisfying social life. Here's a bit about John. Dr. Demartini is one of the world's leading authorities on human behavior, personal development, and empowerment. With over 40 years of research and experience at his disposal, Dr. Demartini travels across the world 360 days a year, sharing his knowledge. He's made appearances alongside world-renowned influencers such as Sir Richard Branson, Deepak Chopra, and Donald Trump. He's written 40 self-development books, published in 29 different languages, including Amazon bestseller The Values Factor. He's also featured in documentaries such as The Opus and the Compass, alongside Hugh Jackman, Seal, Ringo Starr, and Bob Geldof. And personally, I know him from the 2006 documentary The Secret, where people are introduced to the law of attraction. And, we're going to be asking him questions about the law of attraction, and you're really in for a treat. So, John, thank you very much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Sure. So I thought it would be a good idea to tell the people listening a bit about how I found out about the law of attraction. So when that movie came out, I was at the time in South Africa, and I watched it with my girlfriend at the time, and afterwards I was like, wow, that was very inspiring. That is amazing. If that could only be really true, then then the sky is the limit, and this would be so incredible. But I don't really believe that it is true. So what I actually did is I'm going to try to convince myself that it is true. And so I think I watched The Secret like 6-7 times in a row, and read a lot of books about it. And this is now 10 years later, and I wanted to introduce people to it because this is something very close to my heart. I've been studying the law of attraction at least an hour a day since that time, and my life is quite amazing, and I have many stories to tell, from things that manifested, from relationships to laptops to money to houses, and life becomes really exciting once you begin to understand this, and you begin to understand that the power that you have to create things. So I'm going to assume that the people listening to this are either fairly new to it or maybe don't know about it at all. So if a lay person is listening to this, or if you were to explain it to a lay person, what is the law of attraction?
Well, do I have a second, or is this a 10-word answer?
You have all the time. I can cut and edit it as anything out.
Okay, first I'll be practical. Okay. Every individual, regardless of their age, their gender, their culture, lives by a set of priorities, a set of values, things that are most important to least important in their life. I call this the hierarchy of their values. Sometimes it's called the value structure. Whatever is highest on their list of values, the thing that's most important, they're spontaneously inspired from within to fulfill that. They require no motivation, no incentives, no reminding to do it. They just spontaneously act towards it. Things lower on their values, which becomes more extrinsic and derivative values, they require incentive, motivation from the outside. They require motivation to get them to do it because it's not important to them. Now, these set of values can transform perceptions, decisions, and actions. You're always trying to fulfill your highest value, and so you're going to spot things and have selective biased attention in the environment for anything that helps you fulfill your values. Example being, let's say you have a mother who's 35 years old, has 3 children under the age of 5, and their highest value is her children. If she walked in a mall, she would spot children's clothes, children's educational materials, children's entertainment materials. She would spot, and she could wake up at the whimpering of a child but sleep through a freight train. So she has a selective biased attention, a selective biased retention of information, a selective biased set of actions that help her fulfill what's most meaningful to her, her children. If she was put into an environment where it was an entrepreneurial environment, she might not relate. But put her in front of an environment that helps her fulfill her life for the children, and she is empowered. Now, whatever's highest on your value, if you set a goal that is aligned and congruent with this highest value, because of this selective attention, you spot opportunities, you make quick decisions because you've gathered data more efficiently, and you'll take actions on them to increase the probability of getting an outcome and achieving the goal. So that is the area that you excel in. And because of that, because you have acute awareness, your brain is a highest value seeking organ. It's doing what it can to help you fulfill it. Just like a branch of a tree reaching out to the sun, the one that reaches the sun the most gets stronger, the one that doesn't dies out. Well, whenever you're striving to fulfill your highest value, the brain electrifies, and the functional MRIs show that they grow in the area of our highest value. So if you set a goal that is aligned and congruent with your highest values, you will see opportunities, make decisions quickly, and achieve those opportunities, which seems like you notice synchronicities more. Anything that's low on your values, you have attention deficit disorder, retention deficit disorder, and intention deficit disorder. You don't notice opportunities. You don't see, you don't retain information, you don't act on things. You procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate. So part of the law of attraction is that the people who follow and set goals that are aligned with their highest values, they seem to see the synchronicities and opportunities that surround them and take actions, and they achieve them. And in the process of doing that, they seem like the world is working and is on the way, not in the way. They see that it's manifesting. But the people who set goals that are not high in their value, they seem like the world's not working on their behalf. They don't see opportunities, they don't take advantage, etc. They think that the law of attraction doesn't work for them. So whatever we plant our mind on, our innermost dominant thought becomes our outermost tangible reality. Anybody in any field that's excel, whether it be sports, or art, or music, or celebrity of any form, when they're zeroed in on something that's extremely powerful and meaningful to them, their highest value, they get to access the power of the brain to make decisions quickly and act, and they synchronize that, and they perceive the world synchronously, and they see things on the way, and they see things manifesting, and they perceive it as that they're just attracting opportunities, the law of attraction. So part of the law of attraction is purely the degree of congruency you have in your intentions and goals with what you value most. That's part of it. The other part is that we are potentially connected by fields. We now know that we secrete pheromones from our skin in our sweat glands that spread out in the environment, and whoever picks up on those pheromones is impacted and actually has the same feelings we have. And this is how a group of people can change hormonal cycles, and men at war can join together in different unified feelings. We also know that we have communication through our senses, but we also have what potentially is occurring, a almost higher, I'm not going to call it telepathic, but it's a synchronous communication that we have that's so subtle that most people are overlooking it. And we have the ability to influence people that way and be influenced that way. And when we're congruent, this area of the brain that is involved in this is enhanced. So on all levels in neurological research, when we are congruent, we activate what has been called the law of attraction. We literally notice opportunities, see opportunities, take advantage of opportunities, act on opportunities, and achieve our outcomes. We also have more synchronicities in the sense of people contacting us. I think everybody who has thought about somebody and really thought about them and noticed that people call, you run into them, you see things. When you're focused on something, you capture those things. It's not so much that you could bet money on it, but you can't ignore it. So it's in that gray area, that zone where it happens frequent enough to not ignore, but not frequent enough to be able to bet money on it. It's in an area only because we are activating it to the degree of our congruency. And many people don't know what they really value. They're so injuncted by other people's expectations that they cloud the clarity of their own highest values and therefore don't get to access this law of attraction to its fullest. But it is a very powerful way of achieving. And people who have mastered it and have been congruent, they leave their marks in life. They leave their legacies because of it.
Okay. And as I understand it, if you some teachers of the law of attraction, Abraham Hicks, they're talking about that which is like unto itself is drawn, and I hear what you're saying about your highest values. When you're aligned with those, then you see the synchronicities. Then you're attracting things, and when you're not aligned with what it is that you want, it's not showing up for you. But if someone is listening to this and they've never even heard what the law of attraction is there a way that you can explain it that even like a 12-year-old can understand it?
Well, your highest value, your identity revolves around. Mm-hmm. So that is what's most resonant with you. And when you are setting objectives that are resonant with you, anything out in the environment that you perceive that assists you in fulfilling that, you're resonant with. So there is a resonation, and Abraham might put it in a slightly different words, Abraham Hicks, but Abraham.
The teachers, yeah.
Esther Hicks. She may put it in that format, and that's a nice, simple way of doing it. But I know people that think about things that are incongruent with what they value, and they don't seem to get anywhere, and they bang their head against the wall. For instance, and I have to say it in this way, I was just speaking to thousands of people in Ireland a few days ago, and I asked them, how many of you want to be financially independent? And every hand went up. And there's just thousands of people. And I said, and how many of you are financially independent? And 90-something% of the people put their hands down. I said, so just thinking about something that's not really congruent with what your values are can be self-defeating. So I don't want to overlook that component. That's why I'm emphasizing that component, because people can set up fantasies and have self-depreciating outcomes because they're setting goals that are injected by other people that they think, oh, I should be doing this, I'm supposed to be doing this. When you're doing something that is congruent, you don't stop. You endure pain and pleasure in the pursuit of it, and you achieve things, and you perceive the world working on your behalf and helping you get it. You see it as the law of attraction. You keep attracting opportunities that just keep you building momentum towards a goal. Mm. And so I have noticed people. I've worked with thousands of people since when The Secret came out. And people come up to me quite often and say, I've been focusing on my new car and focusing on my new car. But the real truth is they didn't get a car. And for 2 years, they still haven't got a car. And I suggested that they have to really have a value on a car enough to do the perceptions and the strategies and actions to get it. And if you go out and do that, you'll get a car. Mm. You don't want to live in a delusion. You want to make sure you're real about the objectives that you have. My innermost dominant thought is researching and teaching. I have been doing it for 45 years now, and almost 45. And that is my innermost dominant thought. That's what I think about. That's my highest value. That's what I do every day. So I attract opportunities around the world to do that because I've consistently and persistently momentum build around that topic. So the law of attraction is about building momentum by staying focused on what's most meaningful. And you don't distract yourself from what's really meaningful to you. And that's the key. So the law of attraction is real, and we can expedite its power by being congruent and setting goals that are truly meaningful, that our life demonstrates repeatedly actions toward it. And when we do, we will see opportunities, we'll take advantage of them, we'll remember what to do, and we'll build the consistent achievements towards great goals. Mm.
Thank you for clarifying that, because the secret kind of makes it come across as it's really easy. You just sit in your room, you close your eyes, you visualize a car, and you pretend that you have it, and then within a couple of weeks, there's your car. Yeah.
Well, that's a little idealistic. If you're fantasizing about a car, the probability of somebody just handing you a car is not very high. So it's a probability game. Visualizing it is better than not having any goal. Affirming it is better than just visualizing it. Thinking about it is another step. Thinking about it with strategies is a better step. Thinking about strategies and following those strategies, better step. Doing something that serves people to earn the income, or serves people enough where they want to buy you the car with a strategy, is probably the smartest way. Those are all going to increase the probability of it. You won't stay on it if you really don't value the car. So you can't just make a whim and, oh, I think I would like to manifest a car.
Right.
But if you're really committed to it, every time you do something visually, auditorily, kinesthetically, all of the senses and all the actions toward it, you're just increasing the probability of having a car. You don't build the Brooklyn Bridge by fantasizing about a bridge. You build the Brooklyn Bridge by visualizing it, affirming it, thinking about the details, strategizing a plan, gathering the people and the experts it's going to take, and you work towards that over a period of time and blueprint it. I always say the more you do towards your goal, the higher the probability of the goal of manifesting. And thinking about it and visualizing it and doing it definitely sets in motion this law, which has been called the law of attraction. But it's really the law of manifestation.
Right. And to give you an example of that, a couple of years ago, there was the big storm in the Philippines, and I wanted to go help out, and had a clear vision of, okay, we're gonna do this. We're going to help this many people, and we're going to bring these tools to them, and these people are going to come over, and I had a clear goal. But I wasn't just visualizing that was going to happen. I was taking inspired action towards it. So the things that I felt most excited about doing, okay, we need a fundraiser video, so I need to, record, I need to record this, so I'm going to approach these people, and then, I approached those people, and, they showed up with the right equipment, and it's like, hey, that's a quote-unquote coincidence that they have the right equipment. And then I went back to Thailand at the time, and I forgot to book a hotel, and it was high season, and a friend of mine says, oh, you can stay at my place, and I stay at his place, and I'm trying to, with my lack of technical skills, put the fundraiser video together, and he comes back, and he's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm a professional animation expert. Why don't you let me put that video together? I'm like, all right, here's another quote-unquote coincidence. And all these coincidences kept stacking up as I took action. So in other words, like the goal just kind of manifested into reality. So so there's... Go ahead.
What you're saying is reality. So I don't want to mislead people or promote a fantasy, because I don't find that does anything but actually sets people up for self-depreciation. Because, I consider myself a relatively productive individual. I have done, quite a bit of work over the years, but it's not because I fantasize. It's because I've gone to work.
Yeah.
And I have visualized. I have probably the largest collection of envisioned goals of anybody I met. And those goals are strategized, thought through, structured into statements, strategized on the people that's necessary, looked at how I was going to delegate it, thought of the funding. There's a lot of details that go along around some of the biggest goals that I've achieved. There's no doubt that I have visualized it in my mind. But if I was to say that's all I did, I would mislead people.
Right.
There's no doubt that it was inspiring to me, because otherwise I wouldn't have sustained it, the actions it would have taken. And it was high in my values and congruent with who I am. And there's no doubt that I talked about it in my head and thought about it constantly, and thought of new creative ideas and carried around notepads and wrote down on notepads every time I got a creative idea, and then thought, how do I put that into action? Yeah. There's no doubt that as I went along the path, new opportunities came that I didn't see initially, that then I was able to activate, and I built momentum, and synchronicities came. But if you look at the synchronicities, they're actually in a normal probability distribution. You increase the probability of attracting people in your life and opportunities in your life the more you move towards this thing that you're working towards. So there's no doubt that what you just did is a more realistic expectation for outcomes. You did what it took to get an outcome, and therefore you achieved it.
Okay, and here's something else. A couple of years ago, I'm like, all right, I've had amazing success with using the law of attraction for a variety of things, but never really about something tangible. So let me just try it out and see how that works for that. My laptop at the time wasn't properly working. It was an expensive laptop, but after 2 years, it was kind of done. It had viruses on it. I'm like, all right, it's time for a Mac. I want a virus-free computer, and I don't want to pay for it, so I'm just going to see if I can manifest it. So I actually went to the store, and like it is explained in the secret, I closed my eyes, and of course I walked up to the most expensive one because I'm like, hey, if I can manifest it, then I want the nicest one. And I walked up and pretended that it was mine and saw myself in the coffee shop and used it and felt it and, felt the excitement of having it. And then, all right, I walked out. And in the coming weeks, I'm like, oh, my laptop's on the way. My laptop's on the way. Then kind of forgot about it because, my other laptop was still working. And 2-3 months later, I'm in a coaching call with a client, and my laptop starts acting up. Like the little fan inside of it starts to, basically I have to restart. So I tell my client, hey man, I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna have to reset my my laptop. And he's like, you know what, Sebastian? Someone like you shouldn't have to have a crappy laptop. Let me buy you a new laptop. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, let me buy you a new laptop. Price doesn't matter. Just pick whichever one you want and just email me. I'm like, okay. So after the session, I look on the internet for the best laptop of the last year because I'm like, hey, I'm getting it. Why not get the nicest one? And as I look it up, the number one laptop was the one that I had been looking at in the store. And as I send him the email, I'm like, oh my God, this was my manifestation. And then he sent me over the laptop, and I have the laptop. So there is something really magical, though.
Yeah, but I don't want to call that magic. Pardon me for grounding it.
Okay, that's all right.
The real truth is you also served that gentleman somehow.
Yeah, we worked over a period of time, definitely.
And he felt possibly a bit out of exchange, or he wouldn't have offered you a laptop.
Right, okay.
And he also didn't want to work with somebody that didn't have proper equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So the reality is that you earned that with actions and services that happened, and you don't want to ignore that part of it, because you did pick the wisest thing to pick, the Apple highest quality, but he also wanted you to have the best because you served him. So I don't want to ignore that part.
Sure. Because
otherwise you're going from A to Z without putting in the other components. You don't have a guy just walk up to you and I want to give you a laptop.
Yeah.
You researched, studied, learned, mentored, served people, gained knowledge, built up a skill, built up talent, were serving this individual and gave him probably more than he felt that he even paid for. You may have actually undervalued yourself or charged less than what you were really doing for this guy in his world. And he felt, shoot, for the least I could do is get this guy a quality computer. Those are variables that are actions that you don't want to overlook, because otherwise you just kind of bypass and mislead people into thinking, well, I'm just going to have a guy manifest a computer. Because you almost gave up on the computer initially, you just kind of walked away and focused on other things. So because you weren't manifesting overnight this computer. And so the reality is you did a lot of other factors, and I think including all those factors is fair for people to know, so they can then increase the probability of going out and serving people, doing the due diligence it took to serve them, because you had to study and learn and gather experience and stuff that all led to you getting that computer. Put all those together and you have the real law of attraction.
Yeah, good. Thanks for grounding that. I get really excited about the law of attraction, and all that you said exactly makes it gives it more the two sides of the coin. But the fact that happened, that specific laptop came to me, that's the law of attraction at work, right? Yeah.
Well, I'll share with something. this is a very interesting thing. I was in Rome, and I was doing the Breakthrough Experience program, which is the program I teach people how to break through whatever is limiting them in their minds or actions towards achieving. And I've been doing this for 28 years almost, done it 1,090 times. And I was in Rome doing this, and afterwards I was invited to go and tour a bit of Rome City before I left out the afternoon the following day. And we came upon a square that was roped off and covered in red rose petals, the size of a football field. Millions of red rose petals covering the square. And in the center of the square was a bronze statue on a marble base of Giordano Bruno. Now, Giordano Bruno was a philosopher, theologian, astronomer that lived 400 years earlier than that day. And on that day, they were honoring him 400 years after his death as a genius ahead of his times for his contribution to many fields as a polymathic individual. But 400 years earlier, he was burned at the stake for being a heretic, challenging the social, political, religious group at the time. And they burned him at the stake. But before they burned him at the stake, they asked him if he has anything to say. And he says, yes, I do. And he said to the torchbearers, I bet that your fear in lighting this torch is greater than mine in receiving it. For though you may destroy my immortal body, you will release my immortal soul. And my message to the world that you think is a heretic will now be revealed to the world. Thank you. And before he died, as a young man, he wrote a posthumous biography of how he wanted to be perceived 500 years into the future. Well, on this day, 400 years later, what he wrote was now real. It became reality. So that night, I went to my computer, and as I was leaving the country, and I wrote out a 27-page posthumous biography of how I want to be perceived 1,000 years into the future for the contribution that I want to dedicate my life to, being of service. And I wrote it out, and I was inspired, like in Jerry Maguire, Tom Cruise writing his mission statement. And it came out almost like it was writing itself. And that was in the year 2000, right? Just before the year 2000, just like a month or so before. And 2008, I believe, I was invited to speak in Austria at the Melk Abbey. And there were 12 speakers there. Muhammad Yunus, Nobel Prize winner, Dalai Lama. There were 12 of us speaking on world issues. And I was discussing a conflict resolution methodology that I've used for conflicts around the world. And after the speech that afternoon, that evening they had a ceremonial event where they gathered all the speakers and handed them a stainless steel cylinder that had a calligraphied, in my case, 365 quotations from my books and the Demartini Method, which is the conflict resolution method that I had presented, that is an amazing method that I've been blessed to create. And it was calligraphied in scroll paper, put a ribbon around it, sealed into an airtight tube, and then we processed in this giant library to a special library vault called the Infinity of Divinity Room in the Melk Abbey. And then I got to position my cylinder in the center of this Infinity of Divinity library shelf, which is about 12 feet high, right in the center at eye view, to be stored for 1,000 years.
Wow.
And so I literally manifested my teachings to be remembered 1,000 years.
Wow. That's an amazing story, yeah.
So now, is that because I just visualized that? No. Is that because I typed it up? I'm sure that was a piece. But there were thousands of things that I had done, people I had served to be able to be on that. The synchronicities that all led to that outcome was a lot of work. But I'm absolutely certain that the goal that I had, that I'd written, that achieved that goal. And I wrote the posthumous biography, and if you read that biography, you would see that that is congruent with that goal. But there were thousands of things and incremental things that I'd done to serve people to be able to get the opportunity to speak on this conference. And, there's many things and convoluted experiences along the way to get that outcome. I could ignore all those and say, well, it was a law of attraction only. I thought about it. It just took a while to manifest. But I don't want to do that because I don't think that's fair to people. I think the reality is that the more actions you take I always say that if you fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it doesn't fill up with low priority distractions that don't. And when you're doing high priority actions, you see opportunities, you take actions on them, and you activate life in a way that it's on the way, not in the way. And you feel that there's synchronicity, and you increase the probability of having these amazing synchronous events occur in your life. And so I would rather say that there's an action step. We have a sensory cortex and a motor cortex. We're here to use both of them.
Okay, great. If we now kind of scale this back down to all the people listening to this have social anxiety, and that's still something that's in the way of them, being unlimited or feeling unlimited. So this is a challenge that is completely consuming their thoughts, or at least in most cases. So how can someone like this use the law of attraction to their advantage?
Well, first, let me develop something. I have been training people periodically on public speaking, overcoming the fear of public speaking over the years. And I've never met anybody that had the fear of speaking. I've met people that have the fear of speaking in front of people.
Right.
And only people that they perceive that have something that they don't. In other words, if I ask a person who has a fear of public speaking, let's go to a nursery where there's a bunch of babies in the cribs and let's do a presentation, they don't have a problem. They can present what they want to say. Kindergarten class, no problem. First grade class, no problem. And I go right up the classes until I get to high school or college, and all of a sudden they start having anxiety. And the moment they perceive somebody in their audience that has something that they don't, either they're more intelligent and have knowledge and specialized knowledge that they don't, and they feel intimidated by it. They have more success in their business. They feel intimidated by it. They have more money than they do. The more they have a better relationship, a more stable or more attractive relationship, or more social influence, or better looking, or healthier, or more vital, or attractive, or more spiritually aware. The moment they perceive that what the person in front of them, whether it be one-on-one talking or one-on group talking and speaking, the moment they perceive that the other person has something they don't, and they're too humble to admit what they see in these people in themselves, they automatically withdraw for fear of rejection and fear of intimidation. And so now they're focusing on themselves instead of the mission of what the message is that they're sharing. If a person is focused on a mission and not on the comparison, they have no anxiety. Anxiety is a kind of a modified phobia, and a phobia is an assumption that you're going to have more pain than pleasure, more negative than positive, more challenge than support, more loss than gain by taking an action. And that's primarily because of past experiences that you've accumulated an incomplete awareness about that allow you to have that. So if I go in there and I ask the person, so what do you perceive the person in front of you, either one-on-one or one-on group, has that you don't have? And then ask where and when in your own life do you display and demonstrate that action or behavior? And keep looking until you see it quantitatively and qualitatively equal to what the person you're comparing yourself to. And once you see that the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same, you see that you're reflecting them and that you're not missing that, which I've done in thousands of people, you're no longer intimidated by them. You have no anxiety about just speaking up and being with them. But the moment you live in their shadow instead of on their shoulders, and the second you're too humble to admit what you see in them is inside you and you shrink, you inject their values into your life and try to be somebody you're not and cloud the clarity of your highest value, and you rob yourself of the power of the law of attraction. because you just disempowered yourself by comparison. We're not here to compare ourselves to other people. We're here to compare our own actions to our own highest values and our own dreams. And if we focus on prioritized actions every day, we build momentum and confidence and no fear about what people think about it, because we have evidence to show that we're creating.
Well, if you break that down in a step-by-step, then what's the first simple step that people can take?
If you're having a social anxiety, ask, what specific trait or behavior do I imagine this person sitting in front of me has that I don't? And then where and when do I display and demonstrate that behavior in one other form, some other form in my own life, somewhere in the past or present? And don't lie to yourself saying you don't have it. Find out where you do demonstrate it. And once you realize you do demonstrate it to the same degree, you have no anxiety talking to them.
And what if,
they're no longer above you.
What if the person is not good looking and they see someone who is good looking and they compare themselves, and as a result they feel less than?
That means that they're not looking at what they have in their body that's beautiful. I've worked with supermodels, quite a few actually, and I'm absolutely certain that there is no supermodel out there that doesn't dislike half of her body.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And so I worked with a lady that had that exact scenario, and she had what they call body dysmorphia, and she was depreciating her own body because she was comparing it to these other women. And I took a woman who was a supermodel and actually had her listen in on the conversation on how she was judging different parts of her body. Now, you looking at the supermodel, you think, wow, she's gorgeous. But she thought her hair was too thin, her thigh was too wide, her belly button was too big, her breasts were not symmetrical, And what was interesting is, then I asked the woman, what do you have that you admire, that when you're privately with yourself, you actually admire? And she goes, I have beautiful, thick hair. And what else? Well, I actually like my ears. And what else? Well, I have great shins. And what else? Well, I like a certain tone of my skin. And if they don't find out what is beautiful about them, they'll be lying to themselves and comparing themselves to other people, thinking they're supposed to be other people instead of honoring the magnificence of who they are. I've yet to find somebody who is close, quote, ugly, that doesn't have beauty. But they're not looking at, they're concentrating on what they don't have, and they're concentrating on the comparison of other people instead of concentrating on what they do have. And so I have them do that and find out where they have an advantage. For instance, I had a lady who was a lawyer, and she was thinking that, she was attractive, but every time she would do business with men, the wives of the men would undermine the business and make sure they'd cancel it because they didn't want to be intimidated by her attractiveness. And then she stopped and realized that actually having shorter hair, gaining a little bit of weight, wearing some glasses, actually got her business. And so she had this fantasy that she had to be attractive and was comparing herself to super hot chicks and thinking and depreciating herself until she started seeing the benefits of actually calming that down and becoming very successful in business. And then she realized that when she takes off her glasses and lets her hair down and does it on the other side, she had the best of both worlds. So every body has something to be appreciative of. And you are designed the body. I have a new song that's out in the world today called John's Song. And I talk about that you've been given the body that is perfect for your mission. And if you compare yourself to other people with a different body, you're going to be not appreciating your body because it's perfect for your mission, not their mission. Theirs is for their mission. Yours is for your mission. And you always have advantages no matter what you look like, or no matter what strengths or weaknesses you have in your life. You always have an advantage for what it is that's inspiring to you. And asking the question, because the quality of your life is based on the quality of the questions you ask, asking the question, how specifically is the behavior I have or the talents that I have or the looks that I have helping me fulfill my mission? And if you stack up those and answer those instead of focusing on where it's not, you'll open up a doorway of possibilities and you'll tap into your highest values and activate the law of attraction.
Interesting. When someone wants to achieve social ease or social confidence and they imagine that in their mind, and they're not comfortable with the thought of that, what is it that they can do? Is that the same process that you just described, or would you say something else?
Anytime you try to be inauthentic, you're going to have that. Anytime you try to pretend you have knowledge that you don't have, you're going to have that. Anytime you're not staying on your core competencies and in the areas of your highest values where you excel, you're going to have that. So often we subordinate to what we assume other people have and try to be like them and inject their values in their life that we end up undermining it. Because anytime we set a goal that is not aligned with our own values, we automatically have internal anger and aggression, internal feelings of blame and feel of betrayal, internal criticism and challenge, internal despair and depression, internal desires to exit and escape the situation, frustration and grouchiness inside ourselves as a feedback to let us know we're trying to be somebody that's not authentic. So if you're in a social setting, if you try to pretend to be somebody you're not, it's foolish. Find out what you have that's great, because every human being has something of greatness. Find out what you have that offer people, concentrate on that, and go and surround yourself with people that would be inspired by that. You want to not just go out randomly and socialize necessarily. You want to go where you can be of service to people, where what you represent and who you are makes a difference. So you automatically increase the probability of having the feedback that catalyzes further growth. So if you're a cat and you expect to go out and swim like a fish, or if you're a fish and expect to climb a tree like a cat, you're going to self-depreciate and have anxieties and phobias. Phobia or anxiety is a byproduct of philia, fantasies that we expect ourselves or other people to live by. So if all of a sudden we set goals that are where we excel, we'll excel. I have very little interest in technology. I delegate technology. Human behavior, that's been my thing for 45 years. But technology, I delegate. I have specialists to take care of all that for me. So if I was to go to a technology conference where 50,000 people were learning all about the technology, I'd probably be intrigued. I'd probably learn a lot. I would be probably labeled an introvert walking around because I wouldn't know what the hell to talk about. I'm just not knowledgeable of that area. But put me at a conference on human behavior and I will become an extrovert and I'd lead the field. So many times people position themselves in a way that are counterproductive instead of targeting an area where they can excel and build momentum and awaken their natural born leader that we all have inside, but is based on our true values. And then opportunities would expand. If I went to a tech conference, I wouldn't get opportunities. I wouldn't excel. I went to human behavior opportunities would just fly at me because I'm congruent with who I am.
Yeah.
So social anxiety has a lot to do with people attempting to be somebody they're not and not honoring who they are and not allowing themselves to excel in the areas that inspires them. And they're comparing themselves to others instead of comparing their own behaviors to their own dreams. That's what matters. The opinions of others isn't what matters. You're going to have people with all kinds of opinions project their values onto you and try to allow you to be what everybody expects you to be. Kohlberg, the psychologist, said the majority of people try to avoid pain and seek pleasure and set up fantasies for their life and self-depreciate most of their life. And then another group, they subordinate to individual authorities, mothers, fathers, preachers, teachers, and try to live by what everybody expects of them and self-depreciate and annihilate themselves. No wonder they're depressed and on types of drugs like that. And then the other group is subordinating to communities, cities, city-states, traditions and conventions of other people and trying to be somebody they're not. It's the few that stand and are willing to be unborrowed visionaries that stand and transcend that when they feel that it's not about what other people think. It's about their own dreams. It's their own visions. They're the ones that transform the paradigm and the ones that people talk about and eventually are the ones that leave legacies on the planet. Subordinating to other people and worrying about what people think is not the way you master your life. You'll become a victim of history, not a master of destiny.
To kind of give an example that people probably can relate to from my personal life, like when I was 18, 19, I, as I said it back then, couldn't get laid to save my life. And then society and the people around me reinforced the idea that that wasn't a good idea at all. And then I found all sorts of dating material online that taught me that I had to be a certain way, that I had to be good with women, and that I had to be able to pick up women, and if I wasn't able to do that, then I was a loser, and blah, blah, blah. And that actually reinforced the pre-existing anxiety that I already had, because now I was even trying even more to be someone that I was not.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And so that is the case for so many people because of the programming that we have in society. You got to look a certain way. Yeah.
Subordination. See, the greatest way to attract a mate, in my observation, is to be yourself. Mm-hmm. Why would you want to put on a facade and then have to remove the facade with this person and grow that way? Why not just be yourself and attract somebody that matches that?
But John, that's easier said than done, especially for people that have been having social anxiety for a long time and it's absorbing their whole life.
Well, that's because they've been probably subordinating themselves to people most of their life. It's time to wake up.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I find that a woman, every human being wants to fulfill what's most meaningful to them. Their identity revolves around what their highest value is. So if you meet a woman, as I said earlier, their highest value is children, and you ask her, who are you? She'll say, I'm a mother. You would talk to you might say, I'm a podcast entrepreneur. But whatever's highest on your value is what your identity revolves around, and every human being wants to fulfill what's most valuable to them. They want to be loved and appreciated for that. So if you want to get laid, then just know that if you are yourself, and you're willing to go out and assist people in helping them fulfill their values, you become magnetic. Charisma, the study of charisma shows that people that are labeled charisma are only people that people feel that they're getting their values met by being around. So if you care enough about other people, not to sacrifice yourself for them, not to minimize yourself for them, but to care about somebody else, to help them fulfill their values, they're drawn to you and want to know who you are. And then if you allow yourself to be yourself, you are the highest probability of scoring as far as sexuality, because our sexual is not our organs, it's our brain. And when we feel our values are being fulfilled, we wake up our sexual desires. When we feel our values are not being fulfilled, we shut them down. So caring enough about other human beings to step out of your own self-absorption, to focus on serving them in a way that allows you to be yourself, that's the liberty that gets you the lay. Not for the sake of a lay, but because you care about somebody and you feel love for somebody.
Yep. Okay, so if someone is listening to this and they are like, okay, well, I want to create my ideal social life, and they've given it some thought, and it's not, the preconceived idea that society has about what an ideal social life is, but they really thought it through, and they're like, okay, I want to have these kinds of warm, loving, accepting people around me, and so on and so forth. How would they use the law of attraction to attract that into their life? And, what kind of a easy, inspired action steps might they take?
Well, the first thing they would do is crack the fantasy that they're supposed to always be warm and sweet and kind and loving and, people liking all the time. That's a delusion. And I think that it's wise to break those delusions. In society has pairs of opposites, complementary opposites. And there's going to be people that like and dislike you and support and challenge you and are going to be warm and cool to you and are going to like and dislike you. To have a fantasy that everybody's supposed to like you and you're supposed to get along with everybody is going to make you lose your identity. But to know that you're going to be liked and disliked, and the people that like you can trap you, and the people that dislike you can make you stand stronger. You need both to grow. Maximum growth and development is at the border of support and challenge. So first, set realistic expectations on society, because you're not going to have, nobody's going to be just you. If any two people are exactly the same, one's not necessary. You have people out there with different value systems, and they're going to support and challenge you. And if you don't face that truth, you're setting yourself up for anxiety because you're addicted to a fantasy. Everybody's supposed to like you. They're not going to like you. You don't even like yourself half the time. So it's unrealistic to expect everybody else to. And in your own family, you grew up with supporters and challengers. So first, set a realistic goal. Once you have a realistic goal, you're not going to be sideswiped by if somebody rejects you. You're just going to, okay, it's part of the numbers game. It's part of the thing. They're going to have, I didn't communicate their values. I'm not interested in what they're interested in. Next. It's just games of life. Then if you want to use the law of attraction, would you agree when you're doing something you are inspired by, you're more magnetic?
Absolutely, yeah.
More people are going to want to be around you.
Totally. Feels good.
Now, if you're self-absorbed and talking narcissistically about yourself, you're going to push people away. Mm-hmm. But if you find an equanimity within yourself and an equity between yourself and others and talk about them and you and have dialogues and care enough to find out what they're inspired by, if you go up to somebody and said, hi, I'm John. What's your name? Where are you from? What are you doing? Tell me about yourself and everything else. People like talking about themselves. If you care about them, it's not about how great you are and here's what I do and everything else. That's not how you communicate. You find out what they're dedicated to. You find out an established rapport with them, and then you find out their needs in life, and then you communicate who you are and what you can do with them to have a relationship with them because you're selling ideas to them. And people sometimes go out there and they put on a facade. They don't care about the person, and they get rejected more than necessary, and then they withdraw. There's a history of that in their life. So care enough about a human being. You are not focused on your own anxiety. You cannot focus on your anxieties if you're focused on them. If you're focused on you, you're not caring about them, and you're going to get a compounding rejection process because they don't think you care about them. Care about somebody. Find out about another individual and totally focus on them, and you won't be focused on your own anxieties.
And to add on to that, I'd say go to places that you feel inspired to go to. So if going to a club, if you
resonate with you. I don't go to clubs. I'm not a club guy.
Right.
I went to libraries. I met a lot of amazing people in libraries. So, and I found that I found out that I would like to build a culture. I have millions of students now. I said, I'll build a culture. And I'd go out, if I serve millions of people, I'll build a culture of millions of people that I can share my love with. Share, if you care enough about humanity to find what the humanity needs and care enough to go out and find a way of serving it and providing it, you will empower yourself with confidence because you're serving, because they're going to say thank you. And you want, thank you, I love you. That's a great thing to have. And you're going to have challengers, and they're going to make you refine what you're doing more effectively. And you need that to make great service to people. Everybody's on the way, not in the way, if you come and focus on that. And you are the one that end up the hero by serving the most people.
Mm. And John, to come back to what you said earlier, and I'll be respectful of your time. You said, there is, there are two sides of the coin. Not everyone's going to like you. So set realistic expectations as to what your goal is for your social life. Yes, I completely agree with that. However, you can build yourself up from the inside to where you have a resilience. Because I have a really awesome social life, and some people don't like me, but it doesn't faze me in the least, right? It's
because you have realistic expectations. Look, Donald Trump is our president, right, in the United States.
Yeah.
Okay? He's got likers and dislikers.
Definitely.
If you're not going to embrace your hero and your villain, your saint and your sinner, your virtue and your vice within yourself, you won't be able to prepare for the real world out there. Mm. You got to love all parts of yourself. There's nothing you need to get rid of in order to love you. That's the key. Mm. If you can realize it, I've looked in my life. I went through the Oxford Dictionary, and I went page by page, and I circled every human behavioral trait that a human being can have in there, 4,628 traits I found. Then I went in there and wrote down the names of the most extreme people I've ever met that demonstrate that trait. And then I went in there and found out where and when I display and demonstrate that trait until I saw it as much as I saw in these people. When I did, I realized I had every trait. I was kind, I was cruel, I was nice, I was mean, I was stingy, I was generous, I was open, I was closed, I was outgoing, introverted. I had every trait at different moments in my life, and they all served me. I didn't have to put on a facade. I didn't have to try to avoid anything. If somebody said something about me, I looked and go, yeah, at these moments, that's true. No reaction. There's resilience now. Mm. When you can love all parts of yourself, easy to be out with other people.
Yeah, you have all parts of you showing up. You bring all parts of you to the party.
Yeah, you can. Last night I had a talk last night in Los Angeles here. And I was rude and crude and inspired and metaphysical and practical. I was all over the place. And I was turning on and turning off people's value systems all over the place. It was a blast watching people's behavior. I'm me. Yeah. That's who I am.
Right. John, thanks for it. If I could have asked you something that would have allowed you to share something important, what would my question have been, and how would you answer it? About the law of attraction.
I would say that the law of attraction is a great law when it's put into context, and that people deserve to live by priorities. They deserve to be authentic. They deserve to love all parts of themselves. I think there's an affirmation that I've given many people that no matter what I've done or not done, I'm worthy of love. If they'll say that every day, it would be liberating to them, because sometimes they're accumulating judgments on themselves because they're comparing their actions to what they think it's supposed to be according to somebody else's values. Love themselves. You know, at the last day of your life, you're going to be asked, did you do everything you could with everything you were given? And you want to be able to say yes. If you love yourself, you'll give yourself permission to do that. Don't compare yourself to other people. Compare yourself, your own actions to your own dreams.
Brian, thank you. John, thank you very much for being on the show. Very much appreciated. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, the simplest way is to go to my website, drdemartini.com. It's just DRDEMARTINI.com, drdemartini.com. They can go on there, and it's an educational website. You can stay on there for the rest of your life and just keep learning.
Great. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show.
All right. Hope you enjoyed that. Now, I've created something really awesome for you to get rid of your social anxiety, and this resource is completely free. It's called the Social Confidence Starter Kit, and I've been able to put this kit together as a result of, overcoming my own social anxiety, coaching socially anxious clients to social confidence for thousands of hours in the past 7 years, and interviewing over 60 experts on this podcast. Now, this is a very powerful resource. And, I recently read a comment from someone who said that he reduced his social anxiety with 40% using just this starter kit alone. Now, in this starter kit, you'll get 3 resources. First resource is an ebook called How to Overcome Social Anxiety Completely. And in that ebook, I share why you can be completely anxiety-free, and I demonstrate how to do that. I also share an audio file in the starter kit where I share my entire story from social anxiety to social confidence, and I'll share the crazy things I did and tried that didn't really work, and I share what eventually helped me to become completely anxiety free. And last, but certainly not least, the kit contains an 11-part video series where I teach you the basics of EFT tapping, which is one of the most powerful techniques that I've used to overcome my own social anxiety, and it's the main technique that I use to help my coaching clients achieve social confidence. And I'm not just teaching it to you, I'm also guiding you through an experience of it so that you can feel the emotional relief, the calming down of your anxiety, so that you get to experience actual change happening within your body. Now, you can get your free starter kit by going to social-anxiety-solutions.com/social-anxiety-starter-kit. Now, that's not a very easy URL to go to, so you can also just go to Social Anxiety Solutions with an S at the end, it's plural.com, and then in the navigation bar at the top, you click on Overcome Social Anxiety, and that will bring you there as well. All right, talk to you next time. Bye for now.